Today, my guest is Elizabeth Parrish, the CEO of BioViva, an American biotech company who is committed to extending healthy lifespans using gene therapy. She is also the world's first self-experimenter to reverse aging through gene therapy. Welcome to our broadcasting room, Liz. Our audiences cannot wait anymore to listen to your legendary story. So first, could you please make a brief self-introduction to the audience?
Yeah, so my name is Liz Parrish. I think you've already introduced the company. I'm the CEO of actually two gene therapy companies now. One is BioViva, and we seek to solve biological aging through gene therapy. And the other one is called Genoricis, in which we're looking at eye diseases. So mostly aging-associated diseases of the eye, such as glaucoma and lens issues.
Wow, rich and interesting your experiences are now. Let's dive into the questions. The first one is for those who may not very familiar with it, could you please provide a brief review of the gene therapy itself? I mean, how does it differ from the conventional treatment?
Right, so with gene therapy, so all of your cells in the body have your chromosomes in them, and your chromosomes have your genes, and your genes code for essentially pretty much everything about you. The more we learn about the genes, the more we learn about the differences between humans and the samenesses and the likenesses. With gene therapy, what we are doing in my company is called somatic cell gene delivery. So we take a therapeutic, healthy copy of a gene and we put it into the nucleus of the cell. And what that gene does is it codes for proteins that make you healthier. And these are, we use all natural human genes. So gene therapy is a technology, you might have heard of CRISPR, that's editing, that's also gene
Yeah.
therapy. Modifying the epigenome is also gene therapy. So you can add or subtract genes. But when we're talking about my companies, we just add genes to the nucleus of the cell that code for the proteins. And how this varies from other anti-aging technologies is it's allowing us to use genes that are associated with longer lifespans in model organisms and healthier human cells, deliver them one time for probably 5 to 10 years of the patient's life, essentially harnessing the cell and trying to make the cell behave more youthfully, therefore not succumbing to the diseases of aging. So that would be the goal of the company, would be to help you get very chronologically old, which is old by years, but stay biologically young, keeping your cells as youthful as possible.
And since that you have personally undergone gene therapy as a means to reverse aging, then would you like to share with us of your original motivations and your expectations behind the decision to pursue this treatment?
Right. So in 2011, I started working on an advocacy program for the use of stem cells. And I learned a lot about the genetics behind stem cells and the benefits of regenerative medicine. But 2 years later, my son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And I was thrown into the world of childhood disease. My company was actually started to help cure childhood disease, and every gene that we choose to this day will actually also benefit a childhood disease, just so you know. So when my son was diagnosed and I learned that most research doesn't actually translate to humans, no matter how good it is in animal models due to lack of funding, I was very committed to help kids get curative medicine. Whilst on my journey learning about genetics, I learned about aging as a disease, and that by treating aging with gene therapy, not only could we help older people live longer, but we would cure childhood disease faster, and we would create a world in which these children who were sick when they were young might have decades and decades of good health in their future. So after learning about two of the most promising gene therapies at the time, one of them was called telomerase reverse transcriptase. It lengthens the caps at the ends of the chromosomes, therefore giving you more cellular divisions. The other one was a gene called follistatin that increases your muscle mass and was associated with better metabolic outcome and helping children with muscular dystrophy. I decided to take both of those gene therapies to push science and scientists towards curative medicine and working towards the biggest medical unmet need. As you know, 41 million people will die of aging-associated diseases this year.
And since that you have mentioned about type 1 diabetes, which was diagnosed in your son's condition, what about now? Which process of his treatment is he better
Yeah.
now?
So he still has type 1, but now he has there's a lot more support. But what I'm really rooting for is the genetic cure for type 1 diabetes. There are about 4 research projects right now in development for treatments for type 1 diabetes. And just 2 weeks ago, CRISPR Therapeutics was given $100 million to edit genes to cure type 1. So I'm really excited about that. This is where all the cures are coming from, is from genetics. And so I am on top of everything that's happening, very excited about it.
Have all of us on that expectation. We all know that gene therapy is relatively new and developing field. While there have already been some failed cases, even some detrimental treatments in the past years, then how did you evaluate the risks and potential benefits before adopting it?
Well, as you know, gene therapy has actually been around from the 1970s, and thousands of people have taken gene therapy now. There are 15 approved gene therapies in the Western world alone. We now see curative medicine for severe combined immune deficiency, lipoprotein lipase deficiency, rare forms of congenital blindness. Sickle cell anemia now appears to have a cure on the horizon. Hemophilia B has been cured by gene therapy. So the technology has been around for a long time, but it was quiet. There was one death in 1999, and there were a couple of bad outcomes recently. But all in all, gene therapy has certainly killed less people than small molecule medicine that people take today. So this year alone in the United States, more people will die of adverse effects from their drugs that they take now than I would guess will die in the next 10 years or more from gene therapy. So put that into perspective. This is a very exacting science where we're just delivering the therapeutic gene that you need to be healthier. So we're no longer seeing side effects of old drugs.
Then have you considered the best or the worst outcomes before your first attempting?
Oh, absolutely. So we did what's called meta-analysis. We looked at every single research paper in the space of the 2 genes that I took initially. Since 2015, I've taken 2 more genes as well. So I've taken 4 different gene therapies now. But what we do is we look at all of the analysis. We make sure that we're working with a gene that will make cells healthier. And we also make sure that we're working with a gene in which let's say a higher dose isn't super detrimental to a body. So there are proteins in which you wouldn't want them to make too much of them in your body, like human growth hormone. That would be a very dangerous gene therapy because your cells might divide, you might make more, and that would make you sick. We work with genes that could be in every cell of your body. So you would benefit from just a few cells in your body being affected by them, but you are okay if you had a lot of the gene in your body. And that was that's the biggest thing to consider when developing gene therapies.
And in the previous interview, you have mentioned that you experienced no side effects after receiving gene therapy. Well, I'm wondering that did you really not experience any discomfort at all? I mean, even the simplest, sometimes even the simplest treatments like vaccines also have side effects.
Well, remember with a vaccine, they're actually trying to create an immune reaction. So when you take a vaccine, an mRNA vaccine, some people consider that gene therapy. I kind of don't because it's not a gene. It's a, downstream from a gene, but that's okay. When you're taking a vaccine, you're trying to give yourself an immune response. And so you're trying to make your body sick, kind of, so that your body is alert. With gene therapy, we're not doing that. We essentially turn down your immune system and then we put the gene therapy in. We don't want your body to have an effect. If you have a fever or something like that, you probably are not going to have a good outcome to the gene therapy. So we're trying to keep you from having a side effect. The worst part of gene therapy is immune suppression. So you need to take an immune suppressant for about 6 weeks. And people often don't like that. On immune suppression, they often get really hungry. They eat a lot of food. They might gain weight. And they generally have a hard time sleeping. They're kind of manic. So that lasts for about 6 weeks. And then after that, the side effects that you'll see from gene therapy is the gene therapies that we look at is lowering blood glucose levels, increased muscle mass. Remember, even positive things are side effects. So
Less
you might,
severe.
yeah, but no, there were no severe side effects. And actually, we oversee the data that happens in medical tourism, and there have been no adverse side effects. I mean, literally, with gene therapy, as long as the dosage is correct, there is such thing as toxic dose of gene therapy. So no, I don't suggest people go out and do their own gene therapy. You should always work with researchers and medical doctors. And you should have your data analyzed, and that's what we're here for. If somebody is considering a gene therapy, we'd like to, make sure that you do it safely, and we'd like to know how well it works so that we can actually streamline those drugs to the rest of the population of the world.
Then how to evaluate which kind of dose is proper?
Well, actually, for different vectors, so our company is in development of new vectors, and with those new vectors, we don't know the upper limits of the dosages yet. But with AAV, the most commonly used gene therapy delivery method, we know the toxic dose. And this was a mistake that was made by a company in the US FDA a couple of years ago. They give toxic doses to patients, but they should have known that those were toxic doses. So even when you are working in the regulatory system, it is imperative that the companies know what they're doing. So the toxic dose is known in the literature. So definitely people should not go anywhere near a toxic dose of AAV.
And you have mentioned earlier that you are writing a paper to document your gene therapy journey. And could you share some of the findings with us, such as is there any changes in the messages or telomeres, like you just mentioned?
Oh yeah. So that there's this might be two different things. So I am writing a book about my experience as a patient advocate and as a person who just decided to do something that the scientific literature might not have suggested. But we do have a peer-reviewed paper out about my therapy in the telomeres. So I could send you a link to that. Hang on just a second. But we do have a peer-reviewed paper about my gene therapy, and then we also have a peer-reviewed paper about patients that we followed who took gene therapy for dementia as well. But I'll put my
Already
paper.
being published?
Yeah, yeah, it's already been published. This was published a couple years
I've
ago.
got your link.
Okay, yeah. So, and then there's another paper that we published around the dementia patients. And so, that's what we do is we study what happens with these therapies, and we try to get the information out there. And then our goal is to take them through the regulatory system and actually get them approved as drugs for humans.
According to some of the reports, telomeres length of your red blood cell have been largely increased after treatment, equivalent to being 20 years younger. But while some of people question that, telomeres are only one of the hallmarkers of aging, and their extension may doesn't 100% equals to complete reversal of aging.
Yeah,
Do you
that's
think?
right. So when we started, we thought that maybe just by lengthening telomeres, we could reverse all of aging. And it was a very common thought at the time that maybe it would reverse all of the hallmarks of aging. So when I did the therapy, there were 9 hallmarks of aging, and now there's 12, but a lot of them are basically effects that happen from the first 9, but that's okay. Anyway, actually my telomeres are longer than that now. So they started about 6 kb and now they're 9 kb. So I've taken the telomerase reverse transcriptase gene therapy twice. And so my telomeres continue to get longer. And so they're longer than 20 years gain at this point. But you're right, that's only one hallmark of aging. Now we know that by lengthening telomeres, we also benefit mitochondrial dysfunction. So that's 2 hallmarks of aging. And we showed that in our paper last year. No, was it last year? Maybe, I think it was last year or the year before that, we came out with a paper in PNAS about our drug development that we're doing with Rutgers University. And I'm going to post that paper for you as well. This paper is our latest peer-reviewed paper. And it shows that the mitochondrial benefits. So then now we're talking about 2 hallmarks of aging. Lengthening telomeres also reduces your senescent cell load. So that's 3 hallmarks of aging. So, and it benefits, I do believe that by lengthening telomeres, that will be how we will defeat cancer. So by keeping your telomeres long, you know, what causes cancer? Short telomeres or radiation type damages or congenital disorders that children are born with. So if we can keep the telomeres long, it will actually reduce genomic instability, which is 4 hallmarks of aging. So I'm thinking that that one gene does a lot more than we think. But no, did it reverse all of my aging? No, you can see me. I don't look like I'm 20. That, I mean, so we need to find more genes. And that's why at this point, my company focuses on 6 different genes. And then we're developing new technology to deliver them all at one time. And that's what's exciting, because then we might get the monster wave where we can really help people longer. But remember, telomere shortening is associated with all-cause mortality, and a bunch of childhood diseases. So even if it doesn't cure all of aging, right now, I believe that we could help millions and probably billions of people live healthier longer just with one gene. Now we've got 5 more candidates. We put them together, we might be able to help people live healthier a lot longer.
Then what about the cost?
Well, as you know, gene therapy is considered the most expensive drugs in the world. Of the 15 regulated gene therapies in the United States, the cheapest gene therapy to treat one eye is $425,000. Now, if you went to medical tourism, you could treat your whole body with one gene for less than that. So I'm really happy actually that medical tourism is going to help drive the cost of gene therapy down. And I think that that really will be the future. We will make gene therapy affordable by treating the biggest medical unmet need. The problem with the eye disorder or sickle cell anemia or hemophilia B is that they're not large populations. And so therefore, there's no way to make the drug affordable. But when we treat aging, we can make the drug affordable.
And what do you think are the factors that may impact the overall cost of gene therapy?
Well, it's all manufacturing. all the cost is manufacturing. So if you wanted to take the gene therapy that I took in 2015, at minimum, and this is if you bought really not very good gene therapy, at minimum, you'd probably pay $150,000, US dollars, sorry. At maximum, you would pay over $300,000, right? If you were getting GMP, really high quality. But if 10 people were getting it, if you came to get the therapy with 10 people, it would be less expensive per person. It might be $100,000 per person. If you brought 100 people, we could get it down to $50,000 per person. If we had 1,000 people, we could get it down to $40,000 per person. And that's the kind of scale that the world needs to see in curative medicine.
Oh, there have been some controversy regarding the changes in your telomeres after treatment. There are also controversy about the cost. They call it maybe the games of the rich, and also they are questioning the data that lacks authoritative supervision. Then what? How do you respond to all these criticisms?
They might not know that we actually have peer-reviewed papers. And actually, some of the criticisms were they just didn't, I don't think that they understood really what telomeres were or how it works. So with my data, we have used 3 different tests and clarified across all tests the lengthening of my telomeres. They have never shortened and they've only lengthened. And now we have the data from several people. So it's not just my own data. So I think in the world, sometimes to sound intelligent, people criticize, because to be critical of something is easier to do than to understand what actually happened. And so, I mean, we don't get as much criticism as we used to get because they see that we're peer reviewed. We actually release data. We work with patients in order to expedite drugs to humans. And so I don't really take the criticisms very seriously because they usually come from people not actually understanding what happened.
That's really a good mentality. And what population do you think that gene therapy for anti-aging is suitable for, or who is not suitable for this treatment? Is there any age limitations or some other
Well,
factors?
right now, because gene therapy is still experimental, I think that people who participate in it should participate who are out of childbearing years. I think that that's just a normal cohort inclusion exclusion criteria, although you know that most gene therapies right now are for younger people. So there are younger people taking gene therapies, but right now for anti-aging, I think that these should be used in older people who need the technology. Now, as they're proven safe, which they will be one after another, you're going to see them used in younger and younger people. Because the older you get, the more damage you have from aging and the harder it's going to be to cure it. But when the technology is considered safe and it's used in 20-year-olds, they will probably live, a lot longer than older people who get access to the technology now. But the technology is ever changing. And so technology that can help you live a healthy extra 5 or 10 years today, which I think the technology we're working on could help people do, that 5 or 10 years might see you getting to the next treatments that will add much more and actually be able to reverse all of aging. So I'm really excited about that. We have to take it one step at a time.
Is that you're a representative of biohackers? You have been advocating for human experiments and even conducted experiment on yourself. And are you concerned that others may follow your behavior without proper professional
Oh,
guidance?
That's a good question. So I have never advocated the use of gene therapy without a medical doctor. So I suggest that anyone who participates in gene therapy goes with a company who does gene therapy and works with a medical doctor in a medical clinic or hospital. So, although I am a biohacker, I guess by definition, I definitely believe that people should do it safely. My MBA thesis was all around regulations, and I actually work all over the world with governments in order to bring in new pre-regulatory platforms for evaluation of these drugs. So outside of my daytime job with gene therapy companies, I actually work with regulators to help patients get access to technology so that the drugs that go into the regulatory system already have known outcomes. Today, we use mice and rats to assess whether a therapy is safe, but those models are not predictive of human use. And again, 41 million people will die this year, and many of those would like to come forward to try new medicine.
And do you or BioViva have any plans to seek for FDA approval?
Yes, we're actually doing 2 pre-INDs right now.
Then could you please give us more details on that?
Yeah, so we have 2 pre-INDs that we're working on now, and that is one is for dementia, and the other one is for metabolic disorder. And so even though we are treating aging at the cellular level, we will choose endpoints that the FDA recognizes, like metabolic symptoms like blood glucose, or with dementia, we'll look at cognitive ability and beta amyloid plaques and all of the things that they traditionally look at. The difference is that we'll be treating the cells for aging rather than treating them for a symptom of aging.
And what are your personal plans or BioViva's plans for the future? I heard that you have already involved in cellular reprogramming programs. And can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so we're continuing on with our CMV delivery for gene therapy. So today we use AAV, and it's really small, and it can only get a small genetic piece of material into your cells. CMV is bigger and it can get more genetic material in. And so maybe things like reprogramming factors plus lengthening telomeres and making your muscles stronger could all go into the same delivery. Now, I'm not saying that that's what we're working on, because actually cellular reprogramming, um, gene therapy is probably going to be an inefficient way to do that. That will probably be better taken care of from a small molecule, but we're waiting and seeing. So we're experimenting with it, because when they reprogram the cells of a mouse, they actually don't live very long. And it's probably because the telomeres are too short to continue cellular division. So the combination of these therapies, I'm trying to give you an example, is what we're working on with CMV, a bigger gene therapy delivery.
Well, then, listening to your sharing, many of our followers also have some questions to consult. May I convey their questions to you?
Yes, absolutely.
First question is gene therapy, does the gene therapy will cause cancer?
Oh, yeah. So I think that a lot of people falsely believed that telomerase reverse transcriptase would cause cancer. It probably is the best curative thing that you could do for cancer, is keeping your telomeres long. Short telomeres lead to cancer. And we actually know now that short telomeres, so even when a cancer starts, it will basically spin through the telomeres, make them short, and that's when the genes mutate again, and that's why cancers are really hard to keep up with. So telomerase reverse transcriptase has never been shown to cause cancer. Cancer is 21 different things that go wrong. Telomerase can help it grow because it helps immortalize the cell. When we use telomerase reverse transcriptase in healthy cells that don't have cancer, they go through normal cell division and normal cell death, and they're actually the rate of cancer reduces.
And also, our followers are wondering that you look so much younger than you actually are. And do you regularly take other supplements? And how about it?
Oh, thank you. I feel 1,000,000 years old, especially after running two companies. I'm literally shot. But thank you. That's so nice. I do have some supplements. If I can't sleep or I'm traveling, I take melatonin. And my friends tell me to take a multivitamin. And then my friends will send me sometimes, like they'll send me magnesium or calcium, but I really can't tell you much about supplements. It's not my specialty, but thank you. I'm vegetarian. I don't eat meat, and I don't know, but thank you. I hope it's the gene therapy.
The next question is that when we take a shot of gene therapy, can its effect last forever, or do we need to take it several times to maintain the effect?
Well, that's a question that's actually being answered now. So gene therapies are sold as a one-time treatment for a lifetime outcome, but that's because we don't know how long they last, and we know that they last for a long time in cells that don't divide and slough them off. So I'm guessing with anti-aging therapies, I waited 5 years for my second one. Between 3 and 5 years is probably good. And there may be a point where they cap off, especially when you have them in long-lived cells. For instance, follistatin for increasing your muscle mass. Some of your myocytes, the muscle cells, will last for over 10 years, and we would expect the gene therapy to last as long as they do. So it's unknown, but certainly probably the least amount of time between therapies would be 3 years, and the most amount of time a gene therapy might last is between 10 and 15.
Except for gene therapy, um, what about what do you think that are other promising treatments or ideas which
Yeah.
are promising in the future to treat aging or aging-related diseases?
Yeah, so I think that there are good uses for small molecules, and some of those uses would be to clear senescent cells. I think that gene therapy is a little bit a harsh way to go in outside of telomerase that would gently remove them. If you just took a senescent cell remover and you were over a certain age, you have quite a few senescent cells, and so that might be a burden on your kidneys. So small molecules for senescent cells. I'm hoping that the backdoor reprogramming with a small molecule will come of age. That means like the Yamanaka factors were used for gene therapy to reprogram cells. My hope is that there'll be a small molecule backdoor that will reprogram the cells, and that would be really good. If you're older and you can't afford gene therapy, there's something called TPE. It's a plasma, it's cleaning your own blood. And they replace some of your blood, I think, with albumin. Don't quote me on it. This is not what we do. But apparently it reverses epigenetic age quite well, and it reduces a lot of the burdensome like negative buildup of certain chemicals in your blood. So I've heard that that's really good. It's called TPE. Let's see.
What do you think of that? Do you
Stem
think it
cells
is
are always good.
effective or the blood therapy or blood changing ones? What's your
I
idea?
don't I don't think you should do young blood. I don't think that old people should take young people's blood. I don't think you should take anybody else's blood. I think that the blood cleansing, the plasmapheresis of the blood is beneficial because what it's doing is it's reducing a bunch of negative buildup that happens in your bloodstream that your body has a hard time purifying as you age. It's also reducing inflammatory markers. So it basically, so plasmapheresis is one of those treatments that will essentially clear out a bunch of your immune cells. If you did too much plasmapheresis, it would be bad because you need your immune cells and your immune memory. But a lot of those are actually causing inflammation in your body. So my guess is that it's removing a lot of junk that you don't, that has built up over time and your body's having a hard time clearing out. And I think that that is the benefit of it. But I don't suggest that people take other people's blood. Um, I don't think that's a good idea.
And what do you think of the CAR T therapy as a specific branch of gene therapy? Will they trial it or can it be used in anti-aging field?
Well, CAR T therapy is actually really interesting, obviously, for cancer. So this is where they do ex vivo modification of cells and then the T lymphocyte cells and the immune system, and they set them back in the body so that they can target cancers. Um, I'm not sure because about anti-aging. I mean, you would think that it would be a great way to target certain cells that you don't want. But when you modify these cells and with this CAR T therapy, you're stuck with this for the rest of your life. And so modifying an immune cell to target a human tissue is not that's not something that might be beneficial long term. And as we watch patients after CAR T therapy, we'll find out if there are any autoimmune responses to those cells. Hopefully not.
And there also are followers. I'm curious about that. BioViva doesn't offer products or nor it is research institution. What does BioViva do on a day-to-day basis?
Well, we work with Rutgers University and we do research. We are a company, but we do research in CMV gene therapy delivery. We offered testing kits for a while so that you could measure your age, but there wasn't much of a market for that, so it was a bit of a failure. But we are trying to get drugs through to the US regulatory system, and I'm working on regulation in other countries in which we'll make legal access for patients who want to get early access to the technology.
And what about
And
medical tourism?
we also do bioinformatics. So if anyone's running medical tourism trials, we will look at data that other companies will not look at because we know how important it is.
Well, is there any specific channels for our ordinary people to take medical tourism, especially for Chinese?
Actually, there is growing and burgeoning medical tourism in China, but I'm not so sure about the gene therapy. So if you're interested in medical tourism for gene therapy, you can reach out to my company, and we can't give you gene therapy, but we can put you in touch with people who do medical tourism for gene therapy.
And when we reverse when we're receiving gene therapy, where does the material come from? Healthy genes.
Well, if we're involved, we mandate that the material comes from US companies who develop gene therapies, even for clinical trials and drug development. So they have to have a really sophisticated pipeline. Where do the genes come from? They are actually sequences of genes that are human genes that you and I have copies of. And so they're just basically database sequences of the genes, and they're made into plasmids, and then the plasmids are put into the delivery method. So nobody is like, cut open and taken their genes out or anything.
And can you share with us your future plans, or if you plan to receive other gene therapies yourself?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I have a lot of genes that I'm still interested in, and I still want to be patient zero for patients of the future. So we always look for genes that are very promising, but are not being translated to humans. so that we can take part in trying to help people get access to them faster.
Thank you so much. Although not willing to, our interview comes to an end. It's really appreciated that you accepted our interview and share with us detailed and fruitful interpretation on gene therapy.
Thank,
I hope that we will close contact in the future and wish everything goes well with you.
thank you. I hope that everyone got very excited about their future because it will be really amazing. And I hope that we live in a future where we don't leave our children with the same diseases that we die from today. And that will be the goal. And I'm very honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Wish you and BioViva and all the childrens on the old people a bright future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.